California, at least 13 people were arrested as hundreds blocked traffic on 2 major highways, waving Mexican flags and burning a giant effigy of Donald Trump. Police fired rubber bullets, and pepper spray at hundreds of protesters after the crowds took over major intersections.
Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
Fraud, homophobia, sexual assault, white supremacy.
In terms of reaching out and being inclusive, he's done that too. And a will to risk to make things better, and opportunities to embrace the underserved communities.
White privilege!
Load up, we rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
Here in New York, as many as 10,000 people surged through the streets and surrounded the barricaded-off Trump Tower where Donald Trump lives.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
We reject the president-elect. Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
I think it speaks to the disenfranchisement of the people that someone like him could be seen as offering anything to the masses.
Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Little snowflake falling from the sky.
What about gay people? Trump has vowed to protect the LGBT community from a fanatical ideology that represents its biggest threat: radical Islam.
As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology.
Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
He is a racist.
Under Obama, more black people are living below the poverty line. The number of African Americans on food stamps has increased 58% under Obama.
On every leading economic issue, on the major economic issues, black Americans have lost ground in every one of those leading categories. So for the last 10 years, it's not been good for black folks.
Is this how the left helps black communities? By making them poorer and more dependent on government. Race relations are at their worst in decades. 8 years of Obama has been devastating for the black community.
He is a sexist. He is a neo-Nazi.
Well, we don't understand why you called in the National Guard.
Falling on my nose.
Not my president. He is a lying ass.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake,
Fake ass.
little snowflake falling from the sky.
Dumb ass son of a bitch.
Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake falling, 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 falling.
That's not my president. That's not my president.
Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Falling in my hand.
Thank you for taking America back 60 years of progress.
Falling on my nose. Falling in my hand. Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do?
The following is a Nightside Radio Studios production. From the wind-powered Nightside Radio Studios,
tear down this wall.
This is the J.J. McCartney Show.
It's this man. It's the compassion. It's the dignity. It's the wisdom. It's the horse sense of the guy.
Did you know that 65% of the people murdered in the last 10 years were killed by handguns?
Would it make you feel any better, little girl, if they was pushed out of windows?
The American people have seen the truth, and they can see through your lies. There's coming a day when publications such as yours turn into nothing more than flea market advertising. They'll be handing it out for free in grocery store parking lots under everybody's windshield wiper. Yeah, that's the future for the Washington Post and the New York Times and every other liberal publication in this country. We are not going to tolerate your bull anymore. None of it. The American people are fed up. I thought we made that clear on November 8th, but apparently you people in the media just don't get it. A new chapter in American history begins now.
It is my high honor and distinct privilege to introduce to you the President-elect of the United States of America.
Donald Trump is the person to make America great again.
We are a team.
They said it couldn't be done.
Together, we will lead our party back to the White House.
He said it must be done.
Beginning on January 20th, we cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. The most important difference between our plan and that of our opponent is that our plan will put America first.
Here's J.J. McCartney.
All right, thank you, Marcus, and welcome one and all. Welcome to your Tuesday, the 23rd day of January, and we have got Dr. Mark Davis with us today. We'll be taking your phone calls, and of course, we'll be talking about all the latest news, including the earthquake. Yes, my home state of Alaska last night, they got woken up at about 12:30 a.m., It was only a 7.9, though. No biggie, right? Dr. Mark Davis is with us live next. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your Tuesday, and welcome once again to our good friend, author, and physician, and genius, Dr. Mark Davis.
Oh, that's kind of high for me. I don't think I could live up to that. I really appreciate it, JJ. And I'm talking to the most articulate radio show host on the air right now.
Wow, thank you.
Any time that I could think of. Very much so.
Thank you very much. It comes from a lot of practice over the years. Everybody I know says, you talk too much. Like, guilty as charged.
I think you talk enough, not too much or too little. You're just adequate. You're just tempered and measured, as always.
Well, thank you. Well, Dr. Mark, let's start with the news last night. As my alerts started going off on my phone last night, my niece was the first one to let us know about this 7.9 earthquake, which was in the Gulf of Alaska. It was a couple hundred miles south and east of the island of Kodiak. And thankfully, no injuries, no damage reported. There was a tsunami warning issued, and literally thousands of people in coastal areas of Alaska, including on Kodiak Island, and throughout the coastal areas of Prince William Sound, southeast Alaska, all the way down into British Columbia and Washington and Oregon. Thankfully, the tsunami warnings were withdrawn after it was clear that no major tsunami was generated. But 7.9 on the Richter scale, that's almost big.
It's huge. And that is a huge earthquake. And if it's centered in the ocean, it could be a tsunami generator. Luckily, in this case, it did not do that. Now, earthquakes, they gauge them if they're superficial or deep. Apparently, this one was very deep, luckily. So the waves didn't come. But nevertheless, surfers on the coast of California will be grateful, for sure.
Yeah. Well, as I understand it, the way the modern Richter scale works, every point in the earthquake scale is magnifying the magnitude and the amplitude by 10. Yeah, so if a 6.0 earthquake you multiply that by 10 to get a 7.0. You'd multiply that 6.0 earthquake by 100 to get an 8.0. So I mean, the way these things work, and we've seen smaller quakes do much more damage. But if this earthquake had hit off the coast of, in the Cascade area, off of Oregon and Washington, might have been a totally different story. But thankfully, Alaska being the most sparsely populated state in the country, and the fact that this thing was out to sea as far as it was, no reports of damage or injuries, and everybody was safe last night. I was watching some video footage of the Anchorage television station, and they had a girl with a camera phone in the shelter at the school in the city of Sitka, Alaska. That's in southeast Alaska. And if anybody has ever been to the city of Sitka, Dr. Mark, they will tell you it is one of the most beautiful places in the world. It really is.
I'm sure.
And I'm just thankful that all of the thousands of people that went to high ground were able to go home and safely sleep in their beds last night. Very thankful for that.
The earthquake in Alaska in 1964 was one of the largest ever recorded on the Earth.
Yes, it was a 9.2. 9.2.
9.2.
I tell you something. It was, what little I remember of it, because I was a small fry when that earthquake hit, but what little I do remember.
Oh, come on now. We know you were a big guy. Come on.
I may have been big, but I wasn't old.
I heard all kinds of stories about you.
As I was telling my brother last night, the thing about that 9.2 earthquake that happened on March 27th, 1964, was it just went on forever. It shook for more than 5 minutes, and I was telling my brother this morning, he was like, it shook like Charo for 5 minutes. And you look out to where the cars were parked, and they're wobbling like you're never supposed to see things. The ground is always supposed to be solid, and when it goes squishy on you, especially in that big of a degree, where trees are literally whipping themselves where they're touching the ground. I mean, it was amazing, violent earthquake. And thankfully, we haven't had one like that since. The largest recorded earthquake in North America, 9.2 on the Richter scale. But it was only a few years earlier in South America, in Chile, that they had a 9.5 on the Richter scale.
Yeah. Well, some of these cannot be measured. There's also a McCartney scale that measures earthquakes, too. But it measures them in a little bit differently in the way they're situated under the earth. So the lithosphere, the crust of the earth, shakes due to pressure built up in the tectonic plates, and that's what we have here. Luckily for us, this is not a bad earthquake, as earthquakes go.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe it dissipated some energy so that there wouldn't be a bigger earthquake somewhere else.
Yeah, well, I'm going to blame it on Schumer for sure, Charles Schumer. It's all his fault.
Chucky Schumer.
Chuck Schumer is him himself. He's an earthquake. He's really shaking up Washington with the Democrats now, with Mueller, the false reports, the false files, the false narratives that he's put out there. I think Schumer needs to go. It's surprising to me when I looked up his voting record. He does vote mid to left, of course, but the people that supported him, almost 70% of the people in the voting range in New York City and New York State voted for him in the last election. That's a lot of people.
It's insane.
He has an overwhelming support. So he's not going anywhere in terms of getting out of the Senate. He's been in there since 1998. He's in his mid-60s. He's extremely smart book-wise, as we know. And we listened to him yesterday during the Senate, before the Senate vote. And what came up was that he was blaming the shutdown on Trump. It was actually the Democrats that caused the shutdown.
Right.
And that continues to be. And Trump was sitting on the sidelines. He was very quiet, and we let Schumer eat his own feet at that point in time, and which he did. And it shows that the Democrats were the obstructionists and the gridlockers, not the Republicans in this case. And they're not going to put up with it, like you said off the air.
And it was the Democrats that built this culture of secrecy and this culture of leaks within our intelligence community. This huge story today from pjmedia.com today, and that is Bill Whittle's outfit. And the claim is that Strzok and Page, that is to say, the FBI counsel and his mistress at the FBI, they actually referenced an FBI secret society that met the day after the election. There is serious talk on Capitol Hill about the appointment of a second special counsel amid several new bombshell revelations swirling around the Trump-Russia probe. First, there are the allegations of shocking and substantial government surveillance abuses under President Obama outlined in the FISA abuse memo. Secondly, the FBI lost 5 months of key text messages between the anti-Trump, pro-Clinton FBI officials, Peter Strzok, and his mistress, Lisa Page. Now, I'm sorry, but this makes Watergate look like a couple of kindergartners. It really does. This right here is obstruction of justice. It is tampering with evidence, and it is an absolute scandal of the highest magnitude. And now there's talk of a secret society of officials within the FBI that apparently met the day after the election of Donald Trump to plot against the president-elect.
The irony today, the Sessions went before Mueller to give testimony for his investigations. This is crazy.
It is.
Mueller should be fired, and Sessions can do that. And he's not doing that. He's allowing this farce to go on and on and on and on. False dossiers, all kinds of stuff. And it's just absurd that the FBI would try to undermine the presidency. I thought they're supposed to support it. They are part of the executive branch, which is they're within the Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General should take them to task for this. He's not doing that. He's not a good Attorney General. There are a lot of better ones out there, and I like Sessions. I think he's a very good man. On a personal level, I've watched his career over the years, but I think maybe Pam Bondi from Florida, she'd be a very good one. That's one example.
Yeah, there are a lot of
somebody younger and aggressive and conservative.
Exactly right. Yeah. There are a lot of very good people that could serve, and the top Republicans now believe there may be a real grounds for a second special counsel, according to Fox News last night. Representatives Devin Nunes, he is a Republican of California, and Trey Gowdy, Republican of South Carolina, and Bob Goodlatte, a Republican from Virginia, they met Saturday to discuss the FISA memo and the text messages. Yesterday, the trio put out the following statement. Here it is. Washington, D.C. Today, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte, House Oversight and Government Reform Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy, and House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes released the following statement regarding the 384 pages of new text messages between top FBI officials, saying, "This weekend we met to discuss the text messages and possible next steps in our oversight of these agencies. The contents of these text messages between top FBI officials and are extremely troubling in terms of when..." I apologize, I just lost my screen here. Hang on, gang. In terms of the... Yeah, what the hell? Come on. Oh, here we go. In terms, oh, good Lord, what the heck? But this new information that's come to light, the contents of these text messages, extremely troubling in terms of when certain key decisions were made by the Department of Justice and the FBI, by whom these decisions were made, and the evidence bias exhibited by those in charge of the investigation. The omission of text messages between December of 2016 and May of 2017, a critical gap encompassing the FBI's Russia investigation, is equally concerning. Rather than clearing up prior FBI and DOJ actions, these recently produced documents cause us to further question the credibility and objectivity of certain officials at the FBI, and I think you can include Robert Mueller in that.
Yeah, of course. Robert Mueller is part of that as well, sure. We have a lot of undermining going on right now. It's not coming out of the White House, and it needs to be stopped. And Trump has the power to do it. He doesn't want to do it. I think he wants it to burn out itself, and that's what's happening. And the second counsel that would come in, I hope, would investigate Hillary Clinton as well. A lot of things that need to be sorted out there.
And as a matter of fact, you would think
got started.
You would think if this whole Russia collusion thing were investigated by somebody with integrity, that they would have already turned this investigation on the Clintons and on Obama, because the evidence, that's where all of the evidence leads. I mean, think about this ridiculous dossier that was bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton, that was full of nothing but lies and fabrications. The fact that dossier was used to obtain FISA court warrants is enough information to I believe, to bring charges against the Clintons and the Obamas and Loretta Lynch and Susan Rice and a myriad others in the Democrat Party. This is conspiracy on a grand scale.
In your heart of hearts, I don't think you believe it's going to go that far at all, because the Clintons are Teflon in nature. Then it's just going to skid off of them. There have been investigations so far, and they've buried as much as they could. And the questions that are put to Hillary when she goes before a House or a Senate committee are softball questions. We've heard those before. And she's right. She's been there a dozen times, and they've done nothing to her. They don't want to ask the very, very hard questions. And she can't answer them, or she doesn't plead the Fifth Amendment, though, giving her credit for that. I just think it's not going to go anywhere. I think it's a waste of the time. I think it's a bigger amount of time should be spent on the FBI right now and call me those people. And Mueller, by the way. Mueller was in power at the time that the Uranium One deal went down. So what does his people do about that? Was he complicit in that as well? There's a lot of things here that they're covering up. And I don't know where Trump is on all this, because he could order the release of information that the FBI is withholding, including the emails.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But, there is a preponderance of evidence. There really is. And that evidence, if we were living in a perfect world, would lead to criminal charges, indictments against the principals that made this happen and were pulling all the strings. And, that includes the Clintons, it includes the Obamas, it even includes George Soros, who's bankrolled most of this lawlessness, outside the scope of the Democrat Party. George Soros is an enemy of the American Constitution, the American people, and he should be treated as such.
Treasonous behavior is treated superficially. But let me give you a bad example. If a doctor misbills the federal government, just one bill. If he misbills one bill, he can be charged from $2,000 to $10,000 for that one bill. If it's done in such a way in a malicious intent, and go to jail as well. Yet, complete the complicity of Bill and Hill and Mueller and Comey and the rest of the gang, and they can do treasonous behavior and not be pulled in or brought on the mat. It's just beyond my mat. Beyond the imagination. I'm working on some stuff here in Maryland that'll raise your head up. I'll present it when it's finished. That there's corruption at all levels of the government, for sure. That just locally, and you see, I'm only 60 miles north of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is a corrupt town. And because Trump came in, he hasn't cleaned it up yet. The corruption is still there, and it continues to be so. And we all know it.
Wow.
And I'm speaking in generalities because there's just too much to explain what's going on. I think there's more interesting things going on right now. Why did Mueller grill Sessions? What did Sessions know? Did he meet with a Russian counterpart? Did he meet with Mata Hari? Who did he meet with?
Right.
Why does Mueller want? We're not getting clear information on that as well. The Attorney General is weak. At the least, he's weak.
He's compromised.
He needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
Well, recusing himself on the very things that Trump brought him in for.
That's
no wonder
right.
Trump was so, if you allow me to say, pissed off at him.
No doubt.
And I think it's time he needs to see the door.
Now,
and that's the way.
On another subject, over the weekend, we learned that a judge has ordered the state of California to automatically sign up illegal aliens who seek a driver's license, automatically get registered to vote now in California.
Yeah.
Now, to me, this is a deliberate act of election law fraud on the part of this judge, and my hope is that the Trump administration or some other patriot will take them to court, will get this all the way to the Supremes, and allow the Supreme Court to rule on this issue. There is so much going on within our own federal government right now to cover up illegal aliens and to give them safe haven in the United States without any fear of prosecution. Federal escorts dressed in civilian clothing are quietly putting illegal immigrants who cross the U.S.-Mexico border on taxpayer-funded flights and secretly taking them to unsuspecting communities across the United States, according to a government watchdog agency. Dr. Mark Davis, how outrageous is this?
It's extremely outrageous, but it's not new. Since Obama came into office, illegals were coming across the border and being brought by bus, plane, and so forth and dumped in communities all across the nation. So this is not a new program. It's been going on for a long time. We got plenty of them here in Maryland and the surrounding areas, Delaware, New York. Upstate New York, very nice place. They got their share as well. So it is horrific. It should stop. It's not stopping. And I don't know where the Trump administration is on all this. And there's another report that the level of illegals coming across the border in the last month or so is at the levels when they were with Obama in power. So I don't know if that's a true statement or not, but that's what I read and heard. So it's not going to go away, this illegal problem with Trump, and if that border wall ever gets built. And in essence, the Mexicans would pay for the wall because the Trump administration now has put some tariffs on some of the products coming in from the Mexican side. So I think they will, in the essence, pay for the wall, one way or the other.
Dr. Mark, I don't like to brag about things, but the Oscar nominations were announced over the last day or so, and I think that there should be new categories for other things. For example, I think there should be an award for who writes the best headline on a news story, and I would win. I would win that award today. I would, because in my coverage of the Alaska earthquake on my blog today, my headline is simply "Shaken, Not Stirred." What do you think? Earthquake, but no tsunami.
James Bond is going to come after you. That's what I think. I think he's on his way. The latest James Bond. You better check outside your studio door.
I had better do that. I really had. Do you happen to watch?
If you look at the nominations, these things for some of these are the left type of movies.
Oh yeah.
At least Dunkirk got in there. That's good. I'm glad Dunkirk got in there. Lady Bird's in there, though. Whatever. Do you really want to watch a movie about Lady Bird?
Well, yeah. I tell you, I'd rather watch a movie about Lady Bird than Hillary.
Oh, sure. Of course, yeah,
taking a vote. I could make a long list of first ladies I'd rather hear about than Hillary.
Yeah. Well, Margot Robbie got in there. She's the girl from the most recent Tarzan movie.
Laurie Metcalf. Laurie Metcalf got nominated, Metcalf, and if for no other reason than the fact that Laurie Metcalf is in the movie, I might watch it. I would.
Well, this would be Meryl Streep's 25th or 6th nomination.
Yeah.
For lead actress as well. I mean, come on.
I think there should be a special.
Is she really that good?
There should be a special tax on people that win Oscars. Don't you think?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Just make it
put a heavy tax.
That's right.
If the Democrats came off and they said no one in the United States could have property or accumulated wealth more than $10 million, they'd all become Republicans the next day.
That's right. Absolutely right.
Exactly right.
They have all these high ideals, but when it all of a sudden affects them, they become
Well,
they
let's
become
look at
much more
Bono. Look
aware.
at Bono.
Right.
He's right up the street here, basically. He's right up in New Jersey, not far from here, and he has his house down as a farm. It's worth $900 million plus. You can check that. And yet his house is a farm to avoid taxes. And a number of people, look at Springsteen, the way he takes his money, puts it in bonds, things like that, to avoid as much taxes as he can. I thought he's a good tax-paying American.
Yeah. What happened? What happened to the idea that
born in the USA? You're born in the. I'm paying my taxes.
Yeah.
I'm supporting the military. But when he supports Hillary, he's a nutcase. He's a left-winger from the start.
Well, the
and
thing
Obama,
is,
big Obama supporter too, huge.
Yeah, Bruce Springsteen and people like him, they're politically they're very shallow. They really are, and because of their shallowness, I mean, what really they're trying to do is they're trying to maximize, and pardon me for saying it this way, but they're trying to maximize their chances of getting laid. In the culture that they live in, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like if tomorrow the women's movement all of a sudden decided that they like conservative Republicans, what do you think Bruce Springsteen would become?
A conservative Republican.
Exactly.
For sure.
That's all. And when you look at these rock and rollers, they're incredibly shallow. And for example, Bruce Springsteen, his album "Born in the USA." The song "My Hometown." You remember the song "My Hometown"?
Yeah. My Hometown. It was from not from Bruce Springsteen.
What's that?
Bruce Springsteen didn't sing "My Hometown."
Yes, he did.
It was no. There was another one. There's another guy. No, some of the other.
No. You're thinking of the wrong song. I'm talking about the one that was big in 1984, 85. It's called "My Hometown" by Bruce Springsteen. Sings about, Main Street's whitewashed windows and vacant stores. Seems like nobody wants to come here no more. They're tearing down the textile mill across the railroad tracks. Foreman says these jobs are going, boys, and they aren't coming back to my hometown.
Yeah.
That's Bruce Springsteen.
Somebody else has another song by that name as well.
But Bruce Springsteen did the song in the liner notes of the album. In the liner notes of the album.
1984. Yeah.
In the liner notes of the album. He writes how the song "My Hometown" is about the heartlessness of Reaganism. Now, think about this. You want to talk about the brainlessness of Jimmy Carterism and Democrats in general. You look at what happened to the economy under Barack Obama. GDP never even came close to 3%. Jobs were lost and never came back, and he did everything in his power to make America the most hostile environment for any corporation to build a factory or a plant. And do you remember how they tried to stop Boeing from moving their factory to the Carolinas?
Yes, of course. Yeah. It was about the unions.
Exactly.
The unions particularly, yeah.
Exactly.
They went after them with the National Labor Relations Board. I remember that specifically.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened with that.
But I'll tell you about I'll tell you about the heartlessness of Reaganism. The entire recovery in the 1980s, which, by the way, it was the springboard for a recovery that lasted longer than any recovery, any economic growth in modern history in the Western world. Yeah. And that was all because of Reagan's taxes plan. His plan was to cut personal income tax 30% across the board. He didn't get all that he wanted, but he got 25% reduction in federal income tax for the American people. And it was because of that.
That's right.
It was because of that we had the growth that we had in the 1980s. And employment, I mean, many tens of millions of jobs created. And then we got to the 2000s. We had 9/11, of course, and then we had the recession in 2007, 2008, and then along comes Barack Obama, and instead of trying to incentivize businesses to create jobs in the United States, he made sure we raised taxes on corporations. Then he puts in Obamacare, which, by the way, was the biggest job killer in the history of the United States.
Yes, very much. We knew from day one that was going to be that way. when we wrote the book. And I would tell you something. The patients knew it better than I did. They saw what was coming.
Yeah.
It was about controlling healthcare. If you control healthcare, basically, you control 1/7 of the economy. You control people's lives. It was a way for the government to get into your life, and that's exactly what they did.
Yep.
That's it. And now we still have it. It's not gone.
We have a long way to go.
Some of the mandates are still. Yeah, we have a long way to go. They haven't gotten rid of it yet. And you can thank in part to certain Republican senators out there, which will go unnamed here, who kept it going as well, even though that was a selfish move on McCain's part to do that. And now he's having a problem with glioblastoma multiforme. He doesn't look well. We've seen him recently.
Yeah. I wonder what his prognosis is. Is he going to be alive for another year?
100% chance of being dead.
Wow.
Especially in octogenarian. Usually 6 months. It's a pretty rapid. If he has glio, if he has it's the quickest and most deadly brain cancer that I'm aware of.
Wow.
And he'll go soon, unfortunately.
And if he had any class at all, then he would step down and enjoy the rest of his life with his family. But there's no understanding what motivates somebody like John McCain to stay on that stage and to insist that he's going to stay there to the bitter end. He hates Donald Trump so much that he would rather wreck any chances he had of spending time with his family if it meant that he could be an obstruction to Donald Trump. And that's sad. What a sad commentary that is.
Well, Trump is not free of blame from this. Trump did insult him very deeply, saying that he wasn't a hero. So there's something to that as well. It's back, but I would think McCain would be bigger and move past that, but he hasn't. He's kept it going.
McCain is still mad about George W. Bush saying things about him in North Carolina. I remember how bitter he was because he thought that was his race to win, and it really is a sad thing that somebody could be so full of bitterness that they would rather. Oh, by the way, it was a song by Paul Anka. Thank you to my wife, who says that there was another version. It was another song. It wasn't the same song by Paul Anka called "My Hometown." So.
Yeah, there was John Mellencamp did something similar also. I'm trying to think of the name.
Small Town. Yeah, I was born in a small town. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's
John Mellencamp. By the way, one of my favorite musicians, John Mellencamp.
Absolutely, excellent, and he's also my age, by the way.
No kidding.
I'm about 3 months.
That's amazing.
I'm 3 months old.
I thought John McCain would stay.
Older than him.
I thought John McCain.
Not McCain.
I'm sorry, John Mellencamp. I thought John Cougar. John Cougar. John
Cougar Mellencamp.
Yeah, I thought that he would stay in his 30s.
Everybody has a middle name. John Cougar Mellencamp.
I really did. I thought he would stay in his 30s forever.
He looks good. He's a good-looking guy, and he's
really
still around. Yeah, he's ageless.
The thing is, though, he's always been a heavy smoker.
Yeah.
And he's one of those freaks of nature, I guess, that can do all that stuff and never age a minute.
Look at Willie Nelson in his 80s. He's still going. He's kind of sick recently, but he's still going out there.
It's amazing that in your mind, people stay the age that they were when you discovered them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As I look back on it, it's like, Kenny Rogers, for example. I thought, well, Kenny Rogers, he's got the gray beard and everything, but, he's Kenny Rogers. Now you look at him, and he looks like a bad commercial for, don't get plastic surgery. Cautionary tale.
Great story.
What's
Kenny Rogers was giving a concert up in Atlantic City. We went to it, and we thought it would end at 2. It was a Christmas concert. We thought it would end at 2 hours. No, he doesn't end. He doesn't run out on the people. He's a great guy. He stood there like another 45 minutes to an hour, singing all kinds of stuff, and we really appreciated it. We got more than our money's worth.
I've seen Kenny in a couple of concerts, and up in Alaska, we take what we could get up in Alaska, but he came up to Alaska one summer, and he did a great show, and
great memory.
And I'm having trouble remembering exactly the when and the where, but as I recall, he had Sheena Easton with him.
Oh, great. She's a great singer.
Oh, yeah. And she's another one. She'll always be 19 in my mind, you know.
Well, she did the opening to one of the Bond movies.
Oh, yeah, For Your Eyes Only. Yeah,
For Your Eyes Only, that's correct.
The summer of 1983. I know it because I was working at the Blowtorch at the time, which was AM 750 KFQD, and we were playing the crap out of that song.
I was thinking of the summer of 1964. One of my first crushes was up there. Daniel Goldberg. I still remember her.
Daniel Goldberg?
No, Daniel. Yeah, her name. She's like a boyish name. I think that's the father named all of his daughters with boyish names. Robbie, Roberta. Daughters.
Yeah.
That kind of, a lot of men lean that way, but Danielle was her name.
Danielle. Okay.
Danielle. We called her Danny.
Wow.
But a little beauty, 13-year-old.
My goodness.
One of my first crushes. My first crush was when I was 5. Her name was Lois. I did touch her in the sandbox. I have to admit, on the air, I did touch her on her head or something.
My first crush that I can remember, and people don't laugh, was Annette Funicello.
Oh, loved her.
Yeah. I actually had a record album of the Mickey Mouse Club when she was on it. And obviously it predated me, but I didn't know that. And I just thought she was the cutest thing in the world, you know.
You know what happened with her on the Mouse Club? She started maturing. They had to cover it up. You remember that?
Not quite back that far. I don't remember the actual show, but I remembered the record. But then you know what they did is they brought back reruns of the show, and they played them on the TV station there in Alaska.
Endlessly.
Oh, it was terrible. It was some of the most excruciating, quote-unquote, entertainment I'd ever seen. And it was just like, oh, my God, what did they do to that generation? You know, and
she was a fine actress and a great singer.
Yes.
And a nice personality, and she used to tour, things like that. And
actually,
she dies of multiple sclerosis.
One of my other first crushes was Mary Tyler Moore. And,
really?
I just thought she was the most wonderfully beautiful, graceful, and authentic ladies on TV. I really did.
Did you ever get a chance to meet her?
No, never did. The restraining order was, you know.
Yeah. You had 3 of them taken out. I understand the obsession. It was okay. Yeah, I'm in counseling Tuesdays and Thursdays about that.
but then, you know, when I go back and really look at it, though, I remember shows like the Mary Tyler Moore Show and Bob Newhart. And then, of course, after Mary Tyler Moore and Bob Newhart, then it was time for the Carol Burnett Show on Saturday nights. And,
correct. You remember the Dick Van Dyke Show with Mary Tyler Moore?
Yeah.
As the complacent housewife. Mm-hmm. She played that role very well for a while, and then she got on her own.
She was more attractive in black and white than any other lady in color.
Yeah.
She really was. She was just gorgeous.
And Dick Van Dyke's still out there. He's in his 90s.
Yeah.
His brother just passed away.
Mm. Oh, did he really?
Yeah. Yeah, Jerry just passed.
No kidding.
86, I think. Yeah,
he was a funny guy. I loved him on the show Coach. I thought he was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Carl Reiner's still alive.
Wow.
Yeah, because Rob Reiner was just interviewed on the Laura Ingraham show a few days ago. He mentioned his father.
Wow.
Father says he's not in the obituaries, he's eating breakfast.
Yeah, the other one that surprised me a lot was, I don't think he's still alive. I think he did pass away, but Kirk Douglas was...
No, he's still alive, Kirk Douglas. He's 100-something. Kirk is still alive and in a wheelchair.
Wow.
Yeah, you have a...
That's amazing.
You have a computer in front of you. Yeah, I think he's 101 or something.
He's still alive? I mean, please explain that to me medically, how it's possible.
Well, I can he has a very small frame. He was born, he's born 1916.
Wow.
He's 101, I believe, yeah. He'll be 102 this year.
That's amazing.
Amsterdam, New York. A lot of people with small frames live a long time. Male and females.
Wow.
His heart doesn't have to work as hard.
He's
Always
5
liked
feet.
him.
He's
very
5 feet
athletic.
9. He's 5 feet 9 inches tall, and so that's a medium small frame. And but the thing is, I mean, you know, Kirk Douglas, to me, I mean, I go back and I see some of the old movies that he's been in. I mean, he was one of the most distinctive faces in show business. And I mean, that dimple in his chin and just the grit of this guy. And the fact that he's still alive. I mean, his film debut was in 1946. That's 71 years ago. And it's like, it's hard for me to fathom that he's still alive, simply for the fact that, you know how these people live in Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's like, how in the world do they, I mean, it's amazing. It really is.
He had 2 wives and about 10,000 lovers. There was a book out called The Ragman's Son about Kirk Douglas, his father, family, that kind of thing. It came out decades ago. It's an excellent read. I read it. And it talks about all the girls that he had.
Wow.
Right now, they'd be accusing him of sexual abuse.
I imagine Kirk Douglas could maybe get together with Carl Reiner and go and talk about the good old days.
Yeah. I think Carl Reiner's up for another movie. Something's coming up with him. I don't know what the movie is. I think his son may be putting him in there.
I think it is really amazing though that the people that we remember when we were young, it's like you don't want to believe that they can age, and it's a heartbreaking thing to watch, especially when you see somebody whose body is so badly dilapidated that they're hardly even recognizable anymore. And
when I think of Kirk Douglas, I think of Charlton Heston. Those people of that group.
Exactly.
And Heston was one of the best that they ever produced in Hollywood, by far.
But you know who my favorite actor was? My favorite actor was Steve McQueen. And
cancer.
Yeah, he died at the age of 40-something. And he went
to Mexico for alternative treatments,
right,
that.
Right. He was
down there for a while.
He had basically what's called mesothelioma today. He had worked around asbestos when he was in the Navy, but he was one of the, I mean, as far as a guy that you knew was going to be a megastar, you could tell very early in his career on television that he was going to be a megastar. And we get MeTV shows on Saturday. They have a bunch of Westerns on Saturday. And one of the Westerns that they show is Wanted, Dead or Alive with Steve McQueen. And it's amazing. He's a bounty hunter. But his voice and his mannerisms and his size, I mean, he was not a big guy. But boy, I tell you what, he was a big presence on the screen. He really was.
He was in, remember The Towering Inferno?
Yes.
It was a great movie. The Great Escape. He was in The Great Escape.
I remember the movie Bullet. Remember the movie Bullet?
Yeah.
One of the greatest driving chase scenes I've ever seen. Yeah. Great stuff.
And the first Thomas Crown Affair. That was an excellent movie, too.
Wow. Well, the second one wasn't half bad either. My wife gives me a hard time because of Rene Russo and the Thomas Crown Affair with Pierce Brosnan. And
I didn't like that movie that much. I liked the first one a lot better, a lot less money oriented.
Right. But Rene Russo,
Pierce Brosnan's always this wealthy guy, and she knows everything. She's a detective trying to protect a couple of paintings.
But Rene Russo, I mean, she's another one of those that I can't see her getting old. She just,
she's ageless beauty.
Another restraining order against JJ.
Listen, Jay-Z, I have this good lawyer here. He's a Jewish lawyer. He'll take care of you. He himself has 3 restraining orders against him.
Yeah.
So he has a lot of experience.
You remember Johnny Carson's lawyer? His name was Al Bendova.
Yeah. We will not go near that.
And his high school sweetheart, his high school sweetheart's name was Frida Groper. Frida Groper. That's right.
Well, maybe someone should write a book, the complete book of gropology. I hope it doesn't sell. The horrific things that are coming up out of Hollywood now are so dastardly. But the director's couch has been going on forever and ever, and women listening to this need to know that. This is not something new. It just came to the surface, and women are asserting their rights. And most of these women, if they were abused, they should out it. But if they haven't been, or if it was just a touch or a kiss on the head, I don't think a man should lose his ability to work. And that's what's happening.
I think that for far too long, The morals have been so loose in California that nobody, everybody was guilty. That was their excuse. Everybody does it. It's Hollywood, for heaven's sakes. But now that people are starting to understand that there's a correlation between this kind of behavior and as we go back in human history, and you look at the history of slavery, you look at the history of what I would call true misogyny. It all relates to how people were reared, either at home in their family life or in their careers. And when somebody is reared a certain way in their career, they come to expect certain things. And it really is a disservice to our young people today, because what we've done is we've taught them to have low character expectations of themselves and others. And what we need to do is raise the bar a lot in the United States and say, these are the morals that you should strive towards, and anything less than this is unacceptable, period. And unfortunately, the sexual revolution has now turned into this anything goes mentality, and says, "Hey, if that's what you're into sexually, then I can't tell you that it's morally wrong because that's."
Well, the next thing is I say women are not going to like to hear, and apparently I don't agree with them myself, but biblically speaking, because women subordinated themselves to men in marriage, and they took care of the house, and the men went out and shot the deer or whatever, and brought the home the food. Now it's not that way. It's parity all the way up. I mean,
yeah.
However you want to look at it, but the family structure is disintegrated completely. I mean, it's gone.
Yeah,
it really has. Pockets here in Maryland, there are some families that are strong. Well, in Baltimore City, as an example, the homes are single-parent homes in 70% of the cases.
Wow.
You see that in Detroit. You see it in certain inner-city areas especially. Here we have every third person here in Harford County, Maryland, is divorced. So,
wow. It really breaks my heart, though, because the kids are always an afterthought in all of that. And it's like what's the absolute best environment to raise kids? I'd say it's a household that has a loving husband and wife that want to raise morally upright kids. And if that's not somebody's priority, then, boy, they're getting everything wrong. I saw somebody that posted a thing the other day. It basically said, my fiance doesn't believe in God. What should I do? And I'm like, well, if he doesn't believe in God, does he at least believe in godly morals?
Are this two guys, or this is a gal and a gal, right?
It's a girl and a guy.
You don't know anymore. I don't know.
Right.
When you say fiancé, it could be two guys, two gals, or some other format. I don't know.
Well, see, that's the problem.
I'm not laughing in jest. You don't know what they're writing on these Facebook pages, or the new one they call Gab. That's another social medium called Gab, or Twitter, or whatever.
That's just what the world needs, another social network.
Well, I don't know if Facebook will be around in 10 years, actually. I mean, that's a whole story in and of itself. They're spying on people, literally. I mean, every which way they can. They're going through your past histories and posting things about your lives, which I don't want out there.
Well, not to mention the fact that, we've had, I don't know how many, but I know that it's many people have chosen to kill themselves on Facebook doing a live video. And it's like it comes a point in time where you have to say, well, how much liability does Facebook have for giving that kind of a platform to people and never bothering to police it?
It's very difficult. It would be electronically. That would be very tough.
Yeah.
Not impossible. Because they don't know what the act is. They don't know what the end point is on the act itself. If someone's going to kill themselves,
right?
So
right.
I've had patients who kill themselves, and for a number of different reasons, and it's pretty tough. So for every woman that says she's going to kill herself, 10 attempt it. And males, I think it's even a higher ratio. So it's pretty bad. When you see them in the emergency rooms bleeding out, it's sad. I don't want to go further with this for the show, but
yeah, sure.
It's something to avoid. It's something to avoid if we can.
I'll tell you something else to avoid. Something else we mentioned before we were on the air. These angry people marching in protest against Donald Trump. tell us a little bit about your angle on this. What did you see, and what are your thoughts?
Well, first the Women's March. I don't know why they're marching. I mean, women have broken through the glass ceiling on politics, in the social structure, in corporate America as well. What don't they have? What do they want? I don't know what the end point is. I saw a cover of Time magazine, and it shows all these women protesting. What are they protesting? They don't want to be treated like women anymore. They don't want men opening doors for them, warming the car up and getting them at the front door, going out and doing the heavier work. I don't know what women want anymore. I really don't know. If I was a male dating in the 20s, right now, I'd be afraid to kiss the girl.
Yeah.
She'll call rape.
One of the
you pat him on the back. My God.
One of the
it's a sexual assault now.
One of the things I saw watching some of the footage was these disgusting-looking women, I guess you'd call them, that were carrying signs. They were marching for the rights of sex workers. And I'm like, sex workers, okay, let's see. First of all, it's illegal to sell sex. At least it is outside the state of Nevada. And yet they're marching for rights, for the right to sell their body and all this other stuff. And it's like, they act like, well, we deserve to have as much dignity as anybody else that works for a living. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, then why are you dressed the way you're dressed? That doesn't show me dignity. It shows me a very low self-esteem.
Well, if they're advertising it, if it's for sale,
yeah,
they better go to Nevada, as you said. If you go to Australia, some of the port cities, they call them social workers. They have all their vaccines and stuff, and they're basically ladies of the night, and they perform whatever acts they are for money, and that's the way it is. There's a whole history of prostitution across the world, and people view it differently.
And now there's this whole thing about robots, sex robots.
I have one question for you.
Yes.
I don't know how applicable it is. I know we have a few minutes left. A man who marries or a woman who marries 5, 6, 7 times, is this a serial marital type of deal?
Yeah.
Like, look at Rush. Rush has been married at least 4 times. Every 10 years, it's another younger woman. What's that all about? I think Trump's the same way. Is it because they're alpha males and they need younger women to show their true blood, their testosterone level? What is that about? I can't figure that out.
I think in some respects it is they want the same thing that they have always wanted, and that is to have the same kind of relationship with their spouse that their parents had. And in terms of of Rush, I mean, he's been married 3 times. His first marriage at the age of 26. Second marriage was to a woman named Marta, and they split up. And I think he's still with his third wife.
I think they have him down as having 4 wives here. Catherine Rogers, Martin Fitzgerald, Michelle Sexton, and I think a more recent one. But there's a Roxy Maxine in here as well. Maybe there's more out there. We don't even know. Maybe there's 5 or 6. We only have a partial list here.
I think
Rush is a good-looking guy. I like Rush. I mean, I'm a big fan of his.
I like him personally a lot, and I really do root for him. But the thing is, I mean, you get to a certain point, and when you have Limbaugh money in your pocket, and I mean he's so rich it's ridiculous. When you're worth as much as Rush Limbaugh is, at some point in time, how can you know who you can trust?
Look at the timings on the marriages: 1977 to 80, 82 to 90, 94 to 204. Big gaps in there. 210 now. He's on the 4th one, and maybe there's some people in between that they may have shacked up with him. I don't know. The point is, what happened till death do us part?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And I understand that. Different people have different personalities, and there's some people that just can't tolerate all of the attention that is paid to somebody as famous as a Rush Limbaugh or a Johnny Carson or anybody like that. I mean, it's like It's a lot of pressure.
Of course.
Dr. Mark Davis, I thank you so much for being with us. I wish we had another hour because there's so much to talk about, but we always run out of time. Next time, 2 weeks from today, we'll be coming up on Valentine's Day.
Excellent.
See how that goes.
Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Dr.
being
Mark.
on your show.
God
Hope
bless
you. Get
you.
better.
Take care.
Feel better.
All right. Stick around, folks. Hour 2 next. Are these the first volleys in America's next civil war?
He's not a tough guy. He's a bully and he's a bitch.
He's a punk. He's a dog. He's a pig.
And he can suck my
He's a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt.
I'll meet him in a hotel room any day of the week and give him a Louisville Slugger.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
Kiss my mother.
Which side of the aisle is really spewing hateful rhetoric?
Pointing what appears to be a water gun at the image of President Donald Trump projected on a whiteboard, art teacher Pale Modi has now been seen by countless viewers.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Weekdays from noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, The J.J. McCartney Show, exposing the truth, exposing the lies, exposing the deep state.
It's an actor dressed to look just like President Donald Trump as he's assassinated on stage.
How much longer can America survive this kind of hatred?
Video depicting comedian Kathy Griffin holding the bloody, decapitated head of President Trump are no joking matter for the Secret Service.
The rhetoric that has inspired the violence has come from the mainstream of the Democratic Party.
They're involved in the coup, an active attempt to start a bloody civil war.
I want people to imagine an FBI director that has the stones to investigate the deep state. Imagine a justice system that has the integrity to prosecute corrupt government officials. They have refused to apply the 14th Amendment and give conservatives equal protection under the law. What we've seen here has been the gradual takeover of the government by corporatism, by globalism. They have wrested control of our government away from the citizenry and put it in the hands of a few special interests. And these special interests are as evil as the day is long.
We finally do have a president who has the integrity to do this. We finally do have a DOJ who has the integrity to do this. We know that we have people around the president who not only have the integrity, but have the information and the contacts to get everything done you just said. And you say, well, why aren't they doing it? Everything you're seeing on the news, that's what it's about. That's what this investigation's about. That's what calls of impeachment are about. That's what the globalist attack against Trump is about. That's what the hearings are about. That's what the allegations of Russian spying are about. It's about keeping them off point, keeping them off the agenda, keeping them off task. A lot of what you're watching happening right now, and the misdirection and the complete trying to keep Trump off target goes to that birth certificate. The worst crime in American history was perpetrated against America under the regime of Barack Obama. The media is complicit. Congress is complicit. Federal law enforcement apparently has been complicit. We've got a CIA whistleblower, Dennis Montgomery, whose attorney, Larry Klayman, put it all over the internet the other day that he has said that all of this spying that's been going on American people, that it resulted in manipulation and collusion with judges, Supreme Court justices, congressmen, etc., that James Comey was involved in it, that he was at the top of it. All of this stuff you're seeing about Donald Trump's with the Russians, Donald Trump needs to be impeached, Donald Trump, this is a smokescreen to keep our eyes off of what really happened and what's really going on. And America had better wake up to this, JJ.
Your federal government, your federal law enforcement agencies, our federal intelligence agencies, your federal government in toto has been compromised. The fact that Donald Trump has arrived and said, I'm not going to go along with the status quo anymore, is the cause for alarm for these people on the left. And ultimately, Carl, is it possible that yesterday was simply the first shot fired in an impending civil war between two irreconcilable ideologies?
I don't want our children and grandchildren to see or to participate or to fall victim to such a thing. I don't want our nation to go through such a thing. I don't know that we could survive that. Like Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, when he said, now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any other nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. I mean, God's people, we need to pray. We need to not be afraid to speak truth.
Weekdays from noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. The J.J. McCartney Show. Exposing the truth. Exposing the lies. Exposing the deep state.
Live from the Nightside Radio Studios.
This is the J.J. McCartney Show.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Coming to you from Nebraska by way of Alaska. Here's J.J. McCartney.
All right, thank you, Marcus. Welcome, everybody. It's hour number 2 of the J.J. McCartney Show. I'm so glad you made it. We got so much coming up this hour. We'll talk about the latest news. We'll take your phone calls at 855-853-5227. And by golly, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna speak in very plain terms this hour about a lot of things. We're not going to make a lot of apologies because, ladies and gentlemen, what we're saying is true, what we're saying is right, what we're saying is moral, what we're saying is godly, and we don't owe an apology to anybody for doing what we do here. It's as simple as that. And for those of you out there that are so thin-skinned that you can't handle a little bit of back and forth when it comes to what is morally right in this world versus what is morally wrong. If you don't believe in absolutes, that's your problem, not mine, okay? If you don't believe in absolutes, then you're just being deliberately stupid, okay? Not believing in absolutes is stupidity. It really is. Some people say, well, they don't know what it is. It's having an open mind. Well, as we like to say from time to time here, don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out, please. You can do better. You can. And you must. If you're going to be a healthy human being, then you need to understand that there are moral absolutes. There are some things in the world that are always wrong. And there are some things in the world that are always right. And you must not ever fall into the trap of thinking that everything is relative. Because it's not. Okay? Life is precious. Life is sacred. Mankind does not deserve to assume that he has dominion over mankind. In other words, who among us is worthy to choose? And who among us is worthy to proclaim that some lives are precious and others aren't? These people that want to equivocate when it comes to when life begins. And they want to say, well, it begins the day you're born. No, it doesn't. Anybody with any intelligence understands that life begins. The cycle of life begins when? It begins when a father and a mother, regardless of any other circumstance, when a father and a mother, through whatever means it happens, when the sperm fertilizes the egg and the egg attaches itself to the wall of the uterus, then you have the beginnings of life. We mustn't ever dismiss unborn children from being among the ranks of the living. Because, I mean, people say, well, it starts when you're born. Did it start when you were born? And if you had been sitting there in the room with your mother, having the conversation about whether they wanted to have a child or not, are you telling me that you're neutral on that? You know, that what abortion has become is it has become a point of disconnect. It has become a point where somebody loses their ability to empathize with the most vulnerable and innocent human life that there is. When you lose the ability to empathize with a living human being, then what does that make you? I think it makes you cruel and inhuman myself. Now listen, I know that there have been girls that have been pressured either by parents or by sleazy boyfriends or whomever. Some parents out there coached their daughters into having abortions because they were afraid of how it might look. Can you possibly hear, an argument that's any more superficial than that? Oh, we're worried about how it would look. What would the neighbors say? What would they say at church? Well, I guess it depends on what kind of church you attend. But, life is a gift from God. At least it is where I come from. And people that fail to understand that, I really do. I feel sorry for those people. I really do. I feel so sorry for those people. Because to them, life is not sacred. And, how can it be? The sad reality is that for far too long in America, we have we have tolerated things that are intolerable. And morally, this has caused a downslide in our national conscience. Now, here's a story. It's difficult to tell the story because of the people I know, and because I don't like to watch people that I know go through painful things. But I once knew a young lady whose parents encouraged her highly to abort her baby. She was pregnant at the age of 15. And her parents took her to the abortion mill because they were concerned about how it would look. And this girl, who I knew very, very well, I was probably one of her very best friends at the time, cried herself to sleep every night because of what ultimately she had done. Literally cried herself to sleep every night. The sorrow was so deep. We don't... And this is where everybody needs to hold on to their ability to empathize. A lot of people would want to judge this young lady for having done what she did and for bowing to the pressures that her parents put on her at the time. Unfortunately, at the time, she didn't have anybody else to lean on. She didn't know anybody else that could counsel her in a way that would give her the strength to stand up to her parents. She was afraid confused, and literally felt like she didn't have a choice. I could not ever sit in judgment of her because I knew her, and because I knew that she was a God-fearing soul, and she was a sister in Christ. And she became a stronger sister in Christ, obviously, after all of this. And she grew up to have children and get married. But it never left her. This experience never left her. And this is the thing. There are lifelong consequences when people are pressured into these situations. And I felt a lot of empathy for Herb simply for the fact that, she was young. She didn't know at the time the gravity of the situation. How many 15-year-olds do? But I'll tell you this. For people today, they need to understand the lifelong consequences of these types of decisions. It's a terribly painful thing to watch. It really is. Okay, we're going to move on to some other news. And we will begin by jumping into a story from Bob Unruh over at WorldNet Daily. And I apologize for the amount of time it's taking, but I have to open up a new browser window, so just bear with me here. The story is this. The Supreme Court joins President Trump to dismantle Obama power grab. Now, this is really encouraging. The Trump administration has worked virtually nonstop since the inauguration to dismantle some of the environmental campaigns launched by Barack Obama. And yesterday, the United States Supreme Court joined in. The justices ruled that the Environmental Protection Agency cannot provide a hedge of protection, preventing courts from reviewing its actions by requiring such appeals be heard only in some courts. Today's ruling is a victory for the rule of law and for accountability in government, says James Burling of the Pacific Legal Foundation. His organization worked with farmers, ranchers, and other landowners nationwide fighting the Obama-era Waters of the United States rule. The policy vastly expanded the federal government's claim to authority over any water, even ditches and mud puddles. The EPA's Waters of the United States rule may be the most brazen and lawless expansion of bureaucratic power in American history. The regulators who imposed it tried to shield it from review by limiting opportunities for the public to bring challenges. The Supreme Court struck a blow for liberty by rejecting this ploy and guaranteeing access to justice for the EPA's victims, said Burling. The decision came in the National Association of Manufacturers versus U.S. Department of Defense case. Explained PLF, under the terms of the Clean Water Act, people who are harmed by EPA rules like the Waters of the United States regulation can sue in any federal court district. Within 6 years of the rule's issuance, but the EPA unilaterally rewrote that provision, decreeing that lawsuits could be filed only in federal courts of appeal. Now, this twisting of the law allowed just 120 days to file a Waters of the United States challenge. and concentrated all cases in a single appellate court. Burling said that if the EPA had succeeded in blocking victims of the Waters of the United States rule from seeking redress, other agencies would have tried similar ploys. The Supreme Court's rejection of the EPA's power play strengthens everyone's right to challenge bureaucratic abuses all across the governmental landscape. Under the Waters rule, the federal government claimed the right to regulate, control nearly every pond, ditch, and mud puddle in the nation. It asserted that every tributary of a navigable water, isolated pools and potholes, the 100-year floodplain covering millions of stream miles, and on a case-by-case basis, any water within 4,000 feet of a tributary were subject to government control. The plan gave the federal government authority to impose $37,500 a day fines on offenders. Hal Quinn, spokesman for the manufacturers, said today's unanimous Supreme Court decision provides much-needed clarity and affirms our longstanding position that the Clean Water Act empowers the federal district courts, not the courts of appeals, to initially review legal challenges to the Waters of the United States rule. He said the victory, coupled with the administration's actions in proposing to repeal the rule and seek input on how to properly define waters of the U.S., puts us one step closer to addressing this deeply problematic rule and the confusion it has created. The court ruling almost was unneeded. WorldNet Daily reported last year that under President Trump's instruction, the EPA began rolling back the Waters of the United States rule. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt made the policy shift official, saying, "We are taking significant action to return power to the states and provide regulatory certainty to our nation's farmers and businesses." He added, "This is the first step in the two-step process to redefine waters of the United States, and we are committed to moving through this reevaluation to quickly provide regulatory certainty in a way that is thoughtful, transparent, and collaborative with other agencies and the public." Robert J. Smith, Senior Fellow in Environmental Policy at the National Center for Public Policy Research, said the Obama power grab was a distortion of what Congress intended. You don't say. So, folks, Donald Trump is keeping his word. Donald Trump has, I think, done an outstanding job of keeping his promises. I've been very encouraged by what this president is doing. I'm also encouraged by other people that feel the same way. And we'll tell you about a celebrity that outed herself as very happy with Donald Trump. We'll tell you about that, plus your phone calls. Phone lines are open, 855-853-5227. We'll be right back.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
Hey, everybody. J.J. McCartney back here for our good friends at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. You know, folks, there's one thing that there never seems to be a shortage of in this world, and that is uncertainty, unrest. You know, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Natural disasters, economic downturns, whatever it is, you can be prepared by going to MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. They have got everything you need, from ProPure gravity-fed water filtration systems to Kimberly stoves to these composting toilets. Ladies and gentlemen, at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com, you can prepare for anything. Food storage? No problem. Advice? No problem. Call our good friend Sue at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com MountainView.com. Find out what's there for you. Great prices, great advice, and guess what, folks? You'll find it all at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com.
This was not what I was expecting at all. I just thought someone was going to ask me my career plans, and that would be it.
Scared Straight, Liberal Arts Edition.
Now shut up and listen. I majored in the humanities. I racked up $200,000 worth of debt, majoring in studio art and film studies. What was I thinking?
My name is Laura. I'm a creative writing major. I wanted to write fairy tales, and now I live with my parents.
My name is Mateo, and my major was ceramics with a minor in electronic music. I can't even get a job at Pottery Barn.
You can't look someone in the eyes and say, I studied the tribal dance of the Hopi Indians.
Everybody put up the number 4 in the air. That's how many years you have to make it right. If you go to grad school, that's another 4 years. Don't go to grad school!
Don't go to grad school!
You think that's funny? I racked up another $100,000 worth of debt in grad school. Wipe that smirk off your face. I'm gonna be paying off my student debt until I'm dead.
When you're the oldest person working at a coffee bean, you come find me and tell me you don't drink yourself to sleep.
What's your major? Music? You better learn how to make ringtones.
I'll hand you my phone, all right? Yeah. I want you to take it, I want you to put it up to your ear. And I want you to repeat after me. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Can I have $1,000 for rent this month?
Can I have $1,000 for rent this month?
Yeah, you're gonna be saying that every month until you decide to become a teacher at 32.
Do you have a Costco card?
Of course I don't have a Costco card. There are membership fees for that.
We brought you here. We're yelling at you because nobody else will.
Don't let this happen to you.
I mean, I'm used to these kind of talks.
I'd rather hear it from angry people than from my parents.
Do you know what it means to have someone's back? To have another life depend on you and only you?
Where your vision, your defense, your support
is the very thing that is the difference in their life or death.
This feeling is known in the truest form by those that willingly protect you and me every day.
In the military, got your 6 means I've got your back.
They've got our 6.
It's time we got theirs.
Through jobs, education, housing, and more,
we can support returning military veterans and their families.
To find out more information, go to gotyoursix.org.
They've got our 6. Now it's time that we have theirs.
I've got your 6.
I've got your 6.
For more information about Got Your 6 and to purchase 6 merchandise like the now famous 6 lapel pin, go to gotyoursix.org. Show your support, wear your support. Only at gotyoursix.org.
JJMcCartney.com.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
Well, we were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards, and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Good to have you with us on the Tuesday edition of the J.J. McCartney Show. Ladies and gentlemen, the governor of the state of Hawaii was slow to correct missile blunder. Why? Because he forgot his password for Twitter. Oops. More than a week after a false alarm claimed that a missile was headed towards Hawaii and sparked widespread panic, the governor of America's 50th state made an embarrassing admission as to why it took officials so long to defuse the phony alert. Although Governor David Ige reportedly knew the alert was a mistake 2 minutes after it was sent, he confessed that he forgot his Twitter password and couldn't tell the public as a result, saying, "I have to confess that I don't know my Twitter account logons and the passwords. So certainly that's one of the changes that I have made. I've been putting that on my phone so that we can access the social media directly." Questions had been mounting since the early morning panic on January 13th, when the governor was noticeably silent for 17 minutes after the missile alert was issued. At 8:24 a.m. local time, Ige finally gained access to his Twitter to join local senators in squashing the alarm. A correction on Facebook reportedly came several minutes after Ige's brief 4-word tweet that said basically there is no missile threat. It's actually a 5-word tweet. You folks over at CBS might want to, have some remedial arithmetic. He says, "I was in the process of making calls to the leadership team, both in Hawaii Emergency Management as well as others." Governor Ige added, defending his office's actions during the crisis, quote, "The focus really was on trying to get as many people informed about the fact that it was a false alert." Hawaii Emergency Management Agency Administrator Vern Miyagi reported that the error happened when someone hit the wrong button and issued the missile warning. Well, it wasn't just once. Clearly, government agencies are not prepared and lack the capacity to deal with emergency situations, said Hawaii's House Speaker Scott Saiki in a statement after the blunder. Now, you might be asking yourself, JJ, why is this important? Why are you telling us this? Because a lot of things can go wrong when people are panicking. Lots of things can go wrong. What really just flabbergasted me was that it took them 38 minutes. 38 minutes to issue an official retraction that was populated to everybody's cell phones. So last night, or this morning, I should say, about 12:30 a.m. local time, a 7.9 earthquake struck in the waters of the Gulf of Alaska, 157 miles southeast of Chiniak, Alaska, at a depth of 6.2 miles, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. Residents in coastal towns close to the epicenter were woken in the night by warning sirens and urged to flee their homes for higher ground, at least 100 feet above sea level, among warnings of an extraordinary threat to life. After a few intense hours of waiting, the Tsunami Warning Center canceled the warning, allowing people to return home from shelters. There were no immediate reports of any damage. However, tsunami warnings and watches were issued all the way down the coast from southeast Alaska to British Columbia to Washington, Oregon, and California. Thankfully, no reports of significant tsunamis. British Columbia and Canada, Washington, Oregon, California, no reports of any significant waves. There was a wave, I guess, about 6 inches, but that's negligible. I mean, it really is. Tsunami alarms rang out in the middle of the night. You can imagine the mood that put people in. In Kodiak, Alaska, which was the nearest populated area, the sirens wailed and people headed uphill. As a matter of fact, there's one particular area in Kodiak that was flooded with people. There's also I'm looking at a picture from Tofine, Canada, or Tofino, Canada, that shows a shelter which is literally shoulder to shoulder, packed, standing room only. People waiting to see what happens. Thankfully, this time, nothing happened. But I'll tell you something. Considering what we all saw in Fukushima and Japan in general, and what we saw in the Indian Ocean, Boxers Day 2004, you don't take chances. You just don't take chances. Alaskans took to social media to tell of their terror at being forced to flee their homes in the night. One Twitter user wrote, "Tsunami sirens going off in Kodiak after the earthquake. I usually only ever hear the weekly siren test at 2 p.m. on Wednesdays. So hearing it at 1 a.m. on Tuesday is actually terrifying. Residents of my hometown, Anchorage, Alaska, located about 500 miles from the epicenter of the quake, said they were alerted by text message. Shook the house pretty good and just kept going. Hope the people down south are all right." Sean Dias wrote, "I'm here in Anchorage, Alaska. It was shaking for a long time. Hope no one got hurt." Jolyn Lund tweeted, "The earthquake was enough to wake you. The tsunami alert alarm gets you out of bed." Well, that's good to know. You know, I'm looking at the some of the maps that say how much time people would have had were there a significant tsunami threat. And obviously the people in Alaska were the nearest, so they would have had the least time. But it's amazing how far these waves can travel through the ocean. And the fact that 18 hours after the earthquake, there was still people that could have been affected by a tsunami. It's amazing what a big world we live in. And how one earthquake can literally put ripples in the ocean that take 18 hours to reach the far reaches. It just makes you think, is there any place in the world there that can't be stricken with earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, hurricanes, blizzards? I mean, the world is a dangerous place, people. It really is. Thankfully, these kinds of things don't happen every day. But they could. And that's why I really do encourage folks. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure you have supplies on hand in the event that you were to have to shelter in place through whatever kind of disaster you can imagine. And whatever you do, don't wait for the government to come to your rescue. Now, the bottom line is this. You can prepare yourself physically. You can prepare food and water and medicine and safe shelter. But there's one other kind of preparation that you need, that everybody needs. And that preparation is preparing your soul. Everybody is going to die someday. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow is not promised to any man. But what if it had been the real thing? What if the tsunami had been significant? You know, people think that you're safe. You think you're safe. But how do you know? How do you know? I mean, some things you can't prepare for. Death is something you can prepare for. And first you have to understand why it's so important. I mean, we've seen so much tragedy in this world, but it doesn't have to end in tragedy. Not if you are prepared. Not if you're really prepared. Okay, folks, we'll take another break. We'll come back with much more in just a minute. All I can say is this. I'm ready. I'm ready for whatever comes. Doesn't mean I want it to happen, but someday it's going to happen. So be ready. We'll be back.
But we refuse to throw in the towel.
Stay tuned for more. If you are
Uh-oh. Yeah. I knew that was going to happen. We'll be back.
If you agree with JJ's conservative pillars for rescuing America's economy, stay tuned for more. If you are a liberal and think everything is okay, you can go pet your unicorn now.
But we refuse to throw in the towel and do nothing. We refuse to let Detroit go bankrupt. I bet on American workers and American ingenuity. 3 years later, that bet is paying off in a big way.
He gave me a call this afternoon to tell me that the decision had been made to file for Chapter 9.
So the next time you see one of those brand new 2013 models on TV or on the lot, think about how far we've come together.
I don't think any of us expected him to say that.
When it's time to get away, you can always find solace in the welcome arms of your friend Detroit, where the last thing anybody finds is a job, and the furthest thing from anyone's mind is responsibility, where its citizens greet you with a warm hello and toothless meth grins, where the unemployment is so high that its proud citizens can enjoy enough time to slow down as they contribute to the country's worst murder rate, a place where 7 out of 10 of those murders go completely unsolved, and if the gangs don't get you, the roaming packs of wild dogs will. It's a city that's eating itself alive and been entirely run by Democrats and unions since 1961, a crystal ball for the future of the country in a city that's as likely to change as its students are to graduate high school. You can always count on it to be waiting for you with one hand out and the other ready to shoot you in the spleen. A place that's pure Detroit.
My sister Katie and I are bargain hunters.
But my sister Kelly showed me an article that made me change a really bad habit. I used to buy bargain knockoffs on the street.
You mean counterfeit merchandise?
And this can lead to more Americans losing their jobs.
So, no more buying fakes, right?
Right, just honest bargain hunting.
Counterfeits hurt, but you have the power to stop them. Go to www.ncpc.org/getreal. Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council and the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
Sunman moving all day. I got a sunman moving all day.
Have fun in the sun, but be sun smart. Anyone can get skin cancer, even young people. 1 person dies of melanoma every hour in the U.S. You can save your life by using sunscreen, skipping tanning beds, seeking shade, and getting spots checked. This is a public service message brought to you by Mayo Clinic.
Song provided by Miko Big Electric Music.
There was a time in our history when families would decisively settle wrongs among themselves. Frontier justice was meted out by one's kin. But as we advanced, we rejected vigilante justice in our society. And in exchange for our agreement not to take the law into our own hands, the government promised to protect its citizens and punish criminals. This is the social contract forged in civilized societies. But are we really civilized? As of late, it seems that lawlessness and chaos are not the exception, but rather the rule. That it's every man for himself, that we have the right to avenge whatever wrongs we perceive are visited upon us, human suffering rendered irrelevant. 3 Oklahoma teens kill an Australian college student just for the fun of it. Children randomly shot on playgrounds in Chicago who don't even run at the sound of gunfire. A student beat down on a school bus as the bus driver and others watch, not bothering to intervene. A Navy Yard shooter reloading to pick off a few more victims as though it were a video game. This seems to be an awful moment in our history. Right and wrong seem no longer relevant. Political correctness has replaced the scales of justice, and that correctness seems always to be wrong. It's wrong to call the gunning down of our military, men and women, workplace violence when the shooter is Muslim and screams Allahu Akbar. It's wrong to blame the murder of Americans on a video instead of on the terrorists who committed it. And this week, a man with his family on a Sunday afternoon ride is surrounded by a swarm of bikers looking to take over the road for impromptu stunts that they videotape just for the thrill of it. One biker pulls in front of the driver, looks back, and deliberately brakes, causing the resulting chaos. And so the spin begins. The biker, run over by the driver who was simply looking to flee the assault on his vehicle and family, claims he is the victim. He is riding illegally, he has no license, and he's designated by his own state as a habitual traffic offender. And how about this one? The group says they were just out for a bike ride, which is total hogwash. Most had license plates that were bogus or not visible. They were looking to shut down a major highway and threatening anyone who had the audacity to not move for them. And then they chase him and beat him down in front of his terrified family. Still, they claim they're not at fault. Accountability seems no longer relevant. Excuses are the norm. Consequences rarely imposed. But should we even be surprised? In this country, people are rewarded for not working. Many feel entitled to government assistance even if they're home watching TV. IRS employees who target political opponents are given bonuses. Veterans Administration employees, years behind in their assessment of the claims of men and women in the military, are given bonuses. And are you angry that others are more successful than you? Why not start an Occupy Wall Street, take over a park, interfere with traffic, rape a few women, and cause the taxpayers millions in cleanup? In Washington, no exception. It's total chaos in this latest government shutdown. The president and his administration accusing the opposing party of terrorism, having bombs strapped to their chest, and holding a gun to the heads of Americans. Accountability? The president himself has never answered whether he issued the order to protect Americans in Benghazi. And there seems to be no conscience anymore, no shame, a ruthless disregard for fellow human beings. And with the cloak of anonymity that the internet provides, people bully to the point where their targets commit suicide. It's as if there are no social restraints. That herd mentality excuses all antisocial and destructive behavior. The lack of civility, accountability, and responsibility always seems accompanied by the apologist, the excuses, and a sense of entitlement. And you can always rely on the ultimate apologist, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that explains away all antisocial behavior as a mental problem. It's time to stop deceiving ourselves. We are living in a time of lawlessness and chaos. We want to believe in the goodness of each other, but none of the social restraints are ever imposed, and therefore they are simply ignored. It's time to stop being politically correct and start being morally right before we lose every semblance of the civilized society that we fought so hard to create. Now, I'm a pretty tough New Yorker, and I'm worried. And if I'm worried, you need to be worried.
Wow. What an amazing lady she really is. Judge Janine. Don't worry, honey, she's not one of my crushes. I'm well beyond that stage in my life now. I don't have crushes. I'm married. Nobody that's married is supposed to have crushes. All right? Now that we understand that, and we get that through your heads. Okay, now there's a difference between a crush and the list, okay? Just put it that way. 855-853-5227. Toll-free telephone lines are open as we spend the last 10 minutes of the show today just talking about whatever's on your mind. Whatever's on my mind. Whatever's on anybody's mind. Suzanne Summers. I never really had a crush on Suzanne Summers, okay? But there's a lot to like. I mean, there really is. Suzanne Summers, she has chosen to age gracefully. I respect that. I really do. She comes out and says, I'm happy with Trump. I'm glad that Trump is the president. He's doing a great job. And he is. And, there's a lot of celebrities out there that are very, very happy to bash Donald Trump. And I don't think there are nearly as many in Hollywood that hate Donald Trump as much as the big mouths do. But Suzanne Summers says that she is happy with Trump. The job that President Trump is doing, even while aware that she would invite some controversy for saying so. Summers praised Trump on Saturday, the one-year anniversary of his inauguration, telling TMZ she was satisfied with the work he has been doing despite a government shutdown, saying, "I'm happy that the economy is doing so much better. And now my career is over," she joked, acknowledging that conservative viewpoints are very rare in Hollywood. Summers, who is now 71, I got to do the commercial or the cartoon thing here. She's what? She's 71? She's known for her conservative views. During an interview with the Huffington Post in 2012, the author, entrepreneur, called her politics a very personal issue, saying, "I am an independent and vote the candidate, never the party." She said, "I'm also an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs made America the most exceptional and wealthiest country in the world." Well, you sure got that right, dear. Excelling in technology, science, medicine, physics, literature, and most of all, self-reliance and unbridled imagination. 2 years later, the actress made some comments that were critical of President Barack Obama's administration during an interview with Fox Business, saying at the time, "This has been the most divisive of all the administrations that I've ever experienced in my life. And it's become divisive in the industry that if you are not a part of the group, you probably should keep your thoughts to yourself." She also said, "I've never felt anything like this before." That same year, she wrote an opinion piece that appeared in the Washington Times discussing her political views and questioning why Americans have stopped listening to each other because they have opposing political views. Now, if you've listened to my show for any mark of time, you know that we listen, we converse. And, we've had liberals call the show before, no problem. We don't argue with them, but we can speak with them. She asked this question. She said, "What's happened in America? When did we stop listening to those with whom we disagree? When did we stop respecting the opinions of those with whom we disagree?" The former sitcom actress is not the only Hollywood figure who favors Trump. Other celebs who have supported Trump include Scott Baio, Jon Voight, Wayne Newton, Antonio Sabato Jr., and singer Kid Rock. And now, those aren't the only ones, but they're the ones that aren't afraid to have their names attached to a story in which they support the president. So I tip my hat to Suzanne Summers, as well as the others mentioned, because, you know, there's a certain price that they pay for being outspoken conservatives. And, you know, in Hollywood, McCarthyism, well, it's not really McCarthyism because McCarthyism was anti-communist. But the tactics that are being used today in Hollywood and in the mainstream media, I mean, they ostracize people that don't jump on board their ship. I know how that feels. Been there, done that. And I can tell you this. I sleep fine at night. I don't have any regrets at all because I am real. And I am not intimidated by those who stoop to the tactics of trying to intimidate people into changing their expressed viewpoints. And what could you possibly gain by doing that? I would contend that it's nothing. You know what? At the end of the day, your mind belongs to you. Don't let somebody else make it up for you. Inform yourself. Educate yourself. And always be the one that is in control of your mind. And you know what? People don't like you for who you are. They're probably not worth it anyway. They really aren't. You don't waste your time chasing down somebody that has the expectation that you have to change you in order to be acceptable to them. No need in the world, no reason in the world to do that. None. All right, folks, I thank you all for being with us today. I really do. Thanks to Dr. Mark Davis for being with us in the first hour. Tomorrow on the program, it's IQ Al-Rassouli. And on Thursday, Michael Cutler will be with us. And we got so much to talk about with Michael, with all of this stuff happening with the illegal immigrants being flown all around the country on your dime and mine. It's pretty crazy. It really is. So, there you go, folks. Tuesday is in the books. Yeah, we'll come back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. Hey, do me a favor. Share the program with your friends. Follow us on social media. Our Facebook page, facebook.com/JJ McCartney Radio. On Twitter, you can follow us on the Twitter feed is @JJ McCartney Live. And, of course, you can go to the website anytime, www.jjmccartney.com. And you know what? Check out our friends at RedStateTalkRadio.com, the #1 conservative online radio network, RedStateTalkRadio.com. And please, support them, support us, pray for us. It's a daily effort here, folks. If we're all pulling in the same direction, we can do a lot. And if we're all pulling in the same direction as the president, it'll blow some people's minds what we can accomplish. It's going to be an awesome, awesome day when we look back on it and say, we did it. We got the job done. It's never finished, but we've made an impact. America is better, stronger, and much more on a firm footing morally. because of the work that we have done and we will continue to do. All right, folks, be good to yourselves. And if you possibly can, be good to someone else. And remember, we'll win in the end because there are more of us than there are of them. Because God is with us. And because we are all in this thing together. We'll see you on Wednesday. Until then, God bless you. And sayonara. Bye-bye.